Okay. This is the October 24th meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting is hereby called to order under the authority of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and Stormwater Management, Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice is given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kirk Turner.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys is absent. Dan Shinnick is absent. Sam Strife.
Here.
And Howard Bogle is absent. Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum present.
Okay, bring us to our administrative. The first item will be payroll and/or vendor bill.
If I may. For your review and consideration tonight is payroll. And for your review is our hours breakdown. Thank you very much.
The next item is going to be minutes for October 3rd, 2017, July 8th, 2014, July 29th, 2014. We'll do these individually. Did everybody have a chance to read the electronic version of October 3rd, 2017?
Yes.
Was there any questions, corrections, or alterations?
Caught one spelling on October 3rd, last page.
Do you want me to read it?
I
You've already done it with Brent.
don't know, yeah. Made it.
Page 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
4 or
I
5.
can remember it fast.
Says page 4 or 5.
Right, yeah, Sam has a minor little thing.
Plating. Second plating of pines.
Planting.
That was bonsai.
Bronzing. And Commissioner Turner submitted a request for additional information on page 4 of 5 in regards to the continued notice of intent for DEP file number 63-664 at 29 Boxford Road and 60 Pingree Farm Road, Raleigh Conservation Commission application for the boardwalk. He requested that the following be added. Turner noted that at a recent Conservation Commission meeting, Open Space Committee member Sonia Vincola reported that the most recent cost estimate for this project was $10,000, with the monies hopefully to result from a yet-to-be-undertaken private fundraising effort. Turner reported that this subject had been raised at last week's September 28, 2017 meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee, the membership of which includes Ms. Vincola and himself, and that broad-based support was expressed for consideration of receipt of a funding application in this amount for this project at the next meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee, tentatively scheduled for November 16th, 2017. And that was added.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept those with the changes noted?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to
Unanimous, thank you.
yep, the July 8th, 2014. Everybody have a chance to read the electronic version?
Yeah.
Any questions, corrections, alterations? Do you have a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to our final one, which is the July, unanimous again? July 29th, 2014. Everybody have a chance to peruse that, right? Any,
No change.
no changes? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
You doing good at it, Sam? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Unanimous approved, thank you very much.
A little ahead of schedule, but I think it's all right. Should we go to the 8:15 for these gentlemen? We're ahead of
Why wouldn't we
schedule.
go to 7:45?
We can, but I was just trying to give these guys an early night. This would bring us to a 7:45. This,
Yeah, well, a new hearing, the advertised time, it's our responsibility to actually hold the hearing as close to that time,
Okay.
since for a new
I can
public
see.
hearing, because in case somebody does wish to participate.
7:45 item is a new notice of intent for application at 33 Emily Lane, map 9, parcel 23, lots 26, 27. Daniel Davidson, DSD Enterprise, Inc., for proposed construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, grading, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands and isolated vegetated wetlands.
I don't.
How are you, John?
Good evening, John.
Good evening, my name's John DeCoulis, the engineer for 33, notice of intent for 33 Emily Lane. And we're proposing a 4-bedroom dwelling on the lot. There's an existing driveway entrance right there that's been cut in when we did the subdivision. And there's a pile of old pipes that we have to remove here, and an old silt fence that runs up in this direction that we
John,
have to move.
does that work on the upper one so that, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, red laser light disappears into the pixels on the thing.
And stormwater roof runoff will be discharged into storm tech chambers at each end of the dwelling, on the right side there and on the left side. The septic system's been approved, it's a Presby system, and it's outside the 100-foot buffer zone as the local Board of Health regulations require. The driveway will be pitched so no runoff will occur onto Emily Lane. And during construction, we're gonna have a construction pad along there as shown to prevent any silt from washing out onto Emily Lane. There are 2 wetlands adjacent to the site. One of them's on the left side, as shown there, which is to the left of an old woods road that runs out back. And another wetland over on the right side. And we're 100 feet from there's the 100-foot buffer zone. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Did I miss it? Did you introduce another interested party that's with you this evening?
Yeah, Dan Davison, the applicant, is here.
Okay.
All right, usually at this time, I address Brent, and then we talk on that.
Yes, so for, just to review for the commission, the Emily Lane subdivision was consummated in, I think, the early 2000s.
Correct.
And I'm not sure exactly when the project finished, but it finished, what, 2006, maybe 2007, in that time
In
period?
that
I
time
think in
period.
terms of getting a certificate of compliance.
Right.
So John has already mentioned, so just in terms of the field visit I conducted with Greg Bernard, for some reason there is collapsed silt fence a fairly significant distance into the lot. I'm not sure what its purpose was. I'm also not sure why it goes towards and into the bordering vegetated wetlands. But this is a wetlands flag right here. This is the collapsed silt fence that's heading on, and just take my word for it, that it crosses the delineated BVW line, and for some reason goes into the
Those
bordering
tire tracks?
vegetated wetlands. No, that's the collapsed silt fence. So it's a decade old and still tough and doing its thing of smothering vegetation and preventing small mammals from going about their business in the leaf litter and.
It's still staked? It's still staked?
No, the stakes have rotted away. There's no sign of the stakes, but the silt fences looks just as good and solid as the day it got unrolled, so.
You try to take it out and see it.
It needs to be removed, and there's no reason for it to be going into the BVW either. I'm not sure what that's going on there. So we do have that issue. Also, he mentioned that there are some man-made artifacts from apparently the drainage system, some leftover reinforced concrete pipe of various diameters, as well as there's some other black conduit there that does come down off of the right-of-way and is partially in this lot. All needs to be appropriately rectified before we can see construction commence on the site. Let's see, do we have anything else? Yes, there's some other little artifacts left from off of the Woods Road on the side of the property. Right in this location here, there's a large pile of boulders and other debris, and then down here, there's a pile of old stumps that have been left and are partially, or more than likely on this lot, based on where the depiction is of the Woods Road, since they're off of the Woods Road. Ahead of time, he also clearly delineated that a sediment forebay that had been constructed during construction to accomplish capture of silt-laden stormwater while everything was disturbed and before the site got stabilized. That basin, of course, will need to be filled in and graded, which I'm sure they'll do, since no one wants to have a wading pool in their front yard, which is where it'll end up, and the only thing it could possibly be used for if it was left there. And let's see, was there anything else? Yeah, for some reason there's also further in, back in here. So I don't know whether off of this Woods Road, was there some kind of staging area at some point in time in there, John?
At some time.
So there's some more piles or whatever that, are just need to be graded, so I don't know. I don't see any signs of solid waste. I think there might just be boulders mixed with soil in there. But anyway, so there is some kind of cleanup activity that isn't the norm that should be contemplated prior to the site being developed and for construction to commence. And I think, you know, the other issue that developed, and I think Greg has taken care of this, is some of the flagging got messed up out there. And we consistently have a condition that requires that the flagged delineated bordering vegetated wetland line, that appropriate markings needs to be maintained throughout the construction project, so it obviously needs to be refreshed and brought up to an accurate depiction that it matches the delineation that's shown on the plan, because that's in many cases how we gauge compliance with honoring the 25-foot no cut, no disturb setback, since there won't be much else out there that we can actually measure from until we get an as-built plan. The wetlands line delineation is very important because that's what we'll measure from to figure out whether like the limit of work is being put in the correct place, etc. So that needs to be refreshed. So I apologize there isn't a written communication on this, but I have reviewed the plan, and I wish to point out some things that I believe Mr. DeCoulis should invest in producing a revised plan. First off, the plan does not have the bordering vegetated wetlands spelled out and identified either in the legend or on the plan itself, and that needs to be accomplished because that's the major resource area, as well as the 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetlands that we're regulating. There is also the existence of bordering land subject to flooding, which Mr. DeCoulis has labeled on the plan as FEMA Zone A, but he doesn't give us the elevation, and I think from your application before us for addressing the intermittent status of the stream, I believe you had established that it was 51 point something, wasn't it?
51.2, I believe.
51.2. So that needs to be put on the plan
Okay.
somewhere, you know, so that we know that it's
Right.
at that elevation instead of just trying to guess by the fact that it's between contours 50 and contours 52. And again, because that is bordering land subject to flooding, and that is a regulated resource area under both the state law as well as our bylaw. The symbol for the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW, and for that of BVW, is unfortunately the same thing. It's a dashed red line. We really would like to see there be a differential
Right.
there. It's okay if the color scheme is the same, but I think it should be a definite different
Change.
use of symbology
Right.
to show that, because again, that's the edge of our jurisdiction. The 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands is our regulated area and is a regulated resource area under our bylaw. And so we should have that differentiated from the delineation of the bordering vegetated wetlands. You know, just to be clear. Now, the isolated vegetated wetlands is off property, so I'm not, I guess it's okay, but again, you may want to use a different symbology for that, because that technically is different from the edge of the boundary of the 100-foot buffer zone and to BVW, and different from the edge of bordering vegetated wetlands. Again, just so there isn't any confusion, someone might get confused where we've got three different things with the exact same color and the exact same symbol utilized for it. I would also recommend, since the plan sheet seems to have a fair amount of active white space, we do not have any depiction of the erosion control. We do not have a detail of the erosion control. And so we really should have a detail especially showing how the ends of wattles or filter sock need to be parallel and not overlap by going on top, but going side by side, and then being appropriately staked. So I would recommend that there be the insertion of a detail specifying the erosion control. Let's see. One question I have for you, because you were talking about the driveway, and you do show a profile of the driveway, but I was unclear as to which way the driveway is pitching. And you do not provide an elevation of Emily Lane. I assume, because of how I walked the site and looking at the contours, that the driveway slopes down, and then I'm not sure if it slopes up a little
Up a
bit
little
to
bit,
meet
right.
the level of the garage,
Right.
which was elevation, what was it, 60-something, I think. So is the driveway going to pitch away into the front yard in an opposite direction from where the regulated wetland resource area is? Or is it going to shed water towards the bordering vegetated wetlands? Or was it just going to be level so that it just went off to either side and therefore did not concentrate?
That would be our intent, to make it level.
Well, my concern is that it comes down from both the dwelling and it comes down from the roadway. So there's going to be a point there, unless you do careful grading and spread out a level section, there's going to be a point where it's going to concentrate shedding stormwater to either side. And especially if it pulls any water off of Emily Lane, we're going to get concentrated stormwater flow to either side of that driveway right in their front yard.
Well, then we'll have to pitch it to the left.
Okay. Is it contemplated that, again, I'm sorry, I didn't examine the apron when I was out on the site doing the walk. Is the apron where it comes down into there, is that contemplated to have any type of rise or something to keep roadway stormwater
Yes,
from
it
going
rises,
down into
yes,
the lot?
exactly.
It does?
It does,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Can you show that? You've got a profile on here, but your profile is a cross-section, I think, of some point of the drive. But you don't have anything that shows the street and then the driveway coming down to the dwelling.
Right, 'cause it ends right at the street before it gets
Well, as I said, I'm trying to make sure that we address and make it plain to whoever ends up doing the finished grading and the driveway work that there needs to be these compensatory methods so that we don't get a concentration of stormwater runoff. Otherwise, you may want to keep that sediment basin in the front lawn there. Maybe they can raise koi in it or something. I'm trying to be humorous, John. Those are my comments. I mean, other than that, with the plan revisions just discussed, I believe it would be appropriate for the Commission's consideration that an order of conditions could be contemplated that utilizes our standard conditioning for single-family home construction. Now, one final thing, have you checked with DEP and talked to their reviewer as to whether they have any comments about this project?
I have not.
So
That information's available online too.
well, no, it's not, actually. When I talked to them today on another municipal project, I found out that they were actually experiencing a glitch, and when the reviewer checked the box and told it to post it. It actually didn't. It went and unchecked the box and didn't post the comments, and that's how I got the comments for, what was it, the Pine Grove School, I think, that I was able to share today. We discovered that there was, at least in that instance, there was a glitch. I'm not sure that you've got anything especially sensitive going on in this project, and we may have already touched upon the various things that would be talked about. The only
I just wanna see if there's any questions from the
Well,
audience.
sure, I was gonna mention one final thing, and that was that your subsurface infiltrators for the roof runoff, had you done any type of soil testing or whatever to know if you're going to be able to achieve a 2-foot separation
Right.
to groundwater?
Yes, yeah,
You are?
yes.
Okay. I was just concerned about the one on the side towards the delineated BVW, because that's already at contour 56, the existing contour, which is relatively low and a pretty close elevation towards where the wetlands is located, which is somewhere around elevation 51 to 50.
That's a question. What, by this, by us having determined that the stream was intermittent versus perennial, how does that change what was applied for before versus what's being applied for
With all due respect, that's not germane to the submittal.
Yeah, I'm just asking just for-
Before us.
today? Yeah, but for clarity,
Well, there was an issued order of conditions. That issued order of conditions had some riverfront on it. I'm not exactly sure, but if my recollection serves me correct, I think it was out in this area. There was 200-foot riverfront.
but that,
John may remember better than I did
No,
there.
that is correct, and you had us plant some trees in that area.
Yeah, at that time, and that was over a decade ago, at that
Yeah.
time, the area had been cleared when they were doing some of the stumping and stuff. It is actually growing back in, so at this point in time, the trees planted themselves.
so from a conservation area, there's a no the decision before versus the decision today.
No, except for that area that we had contemplated some replanting,
Yeah.
again, because the property never got developed, the woods seeded themselves, and there's a young generation there. Part of their limit of work may be coming into that area with where they're locating the septic field, but there's no substantive change to the proposal. And again, it didn't, the fact that that resource area was there, they had obtained a order of conditions for this construction of a single-family home. It may have been a slightly different configuration on the lot than this was, but it, for all intents and purposes, it was relatively the same.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to understand.
Is there any questions from anybody in the audience on this?
I've got another question.
Go ahead.
What triggers our stormwater protection bylaw is 20,000 feet of disturbed area, is that correct?
Yes.
I noticed the disturbed area here is 19,650 square feet, which is 350 feet short of that distance, and I'm just curious as to whether you're comfortable with the reasonableness of that calculation.
Well, Mr. DeCoulis is a licensed professional engineer, and if he has stated that, then that's what it is. It's entirely possible, but since we just adopted a strategy of reviewing and marking out the limit of work prior to letting activities proceed on the lot, that we may wish to adopt that same strategy and apply that consistently as we move forward, so that we can gain some assurances that the limit of work is actually honored by the tree clearing and land clearing firms that are brought onto a site. That just means the additional step that there's gonna have to be some markings in place so that,
The markings have to be definitely fixed before that.
right, yeah, and we can do it either in a positive manner or we can do it in a negative manner. They can either stake out the limit of work, just as we previously have required that the erosion control be staked out, or we can also, again, you know, working with whoever ends up being the responsible party for the site, we can either mark some trees with like yellow caution tape as to where the cutting needs to stop. I mean, so you can do it two different ways. You can either actually delineate the boundary of the limit of work, or you can mark the trees where they need to stop.
I think they
And
should
left.
mark the trees because of what happened on Dodge Road there.
Well, yeah.
I was in no way casting any aspersions on your calculations, Mr. Coolis, but.
I'm sorry?
I was not casting aspersions on your calculations, it's just that it's in any applicant's interest to stay under that 20,000 square footage, and the calculations as you presented them show that, but I'm just wondering whether we ever independently verify that. Anyway, question answered, and
John, how long a time before you can make those corrections on the plan?
Just a few days.
Just a few days. What
So I
about
think
the
if we give the 14, our normal 14
DEP
days.
is not an issue, actually.
You know, I don't believe so. We can ask Mr. Poulos to reach out to the Northeast Regional Office, and you can vote to have the office consider incorporation if the comment from DEP's reviewer,
Do you want a time
you know,
frame?
is valid.
What do you want for a time frame
Well, 14 days from,
today?
yeah, and that would be with review and approval of the revised plan. And at that point in time, then the public hearing would close upon submittal of an approved
Of all those items.
revised plan, yeah, and the other information.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Good luck, John.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You want me to just read from,
So I'm just trying to catch up.
all right, this brings us to our 8 o'clock item agenda. This is a legal notice for the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 24th, 2017, at 8 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex, at 39 Central Street, to consider the request for the determination of applicability for the application filed by David Creasy Creasy Realty Trust for the proposed removal, concrete and cinder block foundation, and grading and loaming for replanting possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetlands at 63 Pleasant Street, map 24, parcel 64 in Raleigh, Mass. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's basically it, just taking down the foundation, right there, just removing the foundation.
The one that's just a plain foundation.
Yes, yeah, well, there was a greenhouse constructed, but that's, and then putting in topsoil and planting,
Turning it back into yard.
yes, yeah, basically.
Do we know where the 100-foot bordering vegetation is?
Yes, conveniently marked by this funny little marsh symbol along the abutting property boundary, with some of it extending into the terrain here, but basically he's got an emergent freshwater marsh or a little pond there that goes and it hits a culvert, goes under Pleasant Street, heading
So he's
towards
well within the
Batchelor Brook.
100-foot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's,
Right.
let's see, when we scaled it out, it was, I think, 50 feet or something like that, wasn't it? Somewhere around there, either between 40 and 50 feet. And actually, we previously had an application from Mr. Cressy when he established this area, the mum beds over there, as well as had put this pathway in back when the greenhouses were actually there. Excessive snow loading did them in 2015, I think you said?
Yes.
So the proposal is kind of to just work with the fact that there's this existing cart path there, install the erosion control just off the edge of that cart path and bring it all the way down here, because some of the concrete cinder block foundation is going to be removed from down there also. This whole area, and I believe this area here, is getting removed, but that can be easily accessed by coming in from the existing road, gravel access road that he has on the site that goes around his existing greenhouses on there. So there's no issue of access, and there's no particular concern because it's a grass area. So using something like straw wattle or compost bark mulch sock would be very effective once it's
No
safe.
hill, it's pretty flat right
No,
there.
there's a slight slope going down. There's a slight slope going down there, which is why it is definitely not a choice of whether or if to install the erosion control. The erosion control should definitely be installed prior to the start of.
And actually, this foundation wall here is 70 feet long, so so it's probably 70 feet to
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
the.
Anybody have any questions?
Just for the sake of accuracy, that pond drains into what brook?
Ox pasture.
You're removing all the old foundations?
Yes,
Okay.
just right there, just at between beside this building here.
Yeah,
And then these two, a lean-to greenhouse, and then this.
okay, yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
So I did prepare a memo that had some suggested conditions, for the commission, including, again, the requirement that any contractor involved in doing the work have spill containment kit available, especially since we have wetland resource area with flowing water in it right nearby. Inspection of the erosion control once it's in place, and then inspection to establish when the area is stabilized in order to authorize removal after the after the project is done.
Pretty cut and dry. Do we hear a motion to,
Some of, seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Plan on doing that right away?
As soon as I can get somebody there, I guess.
Good.
What do you grow in those greenhouses?
Bedding plants in the spring and garden gnome in the fall.
A lot.
Okay, I'll be sending that to you.
Right,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Cressy came in on the day that our legal notices are required to be submitted to request a signature for doing the farmer's porch renovation on the house, and just happened to mention to me that he was thinking of taking out the foundations here. I said, well, I'm pretty sure from our past experience, that's within our 100-foot buffer zone, so. I said, would you like to come back here in a couple hours, and we'll sit down and prepare an application for you?
It's rather a painless procedure, so. All right, this brings us to our 8:15 agenda item. Legal notice from the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Town of Raleigh Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw, as amended, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 24th, 2017, at 8:15 in the Town Hall Annex located at 39 Central Street to consider a stormwater management permit application filed by the Town of Raleigh for the proposed renovation of the existing Pine Grove School and the associated site improvements, including the construction of a new sewage disposal system, new site utilities, including a new stormwater management system, reconfiguration and reconstruction of a drive areas, parking, walkways, and play areas. Total site disturbance is approximately 36,830 square feet, including the approximately 16,079 square feet, the new additional impervious area at 191 Main Street, map 25, parcel lot 40 in Raleigh, Mass.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is David Conway of Niche Engineering. Just some housekeeping stuff. This is from a mailing, and this
Okay.
is a stamp survey.
Okay.
And I didn't know if you want to pull them up, or I brought the board, or however you want to
You
do
better
it.
put the board up,
Okay.
because I think I got 250 pages in your PDF, and I'm not sure which one.
No, that's the report. You don't want that one. So, we're here tonight for the Pine Grove School, which is a building renovation project with some site reconstruction. The building itself is going to be renovated, but the existing building, there'll be no additional footprints or no, not tearing down any pieces of it or building any new structure on it. The significant site renovation includes, as read in the ad, a new septic field, the location of the baseball field, all new stormwater system for the site, compliant with Mass DEP regs once we address one last one, reconfigured parking, new utilities coming in, underground electric, telecom, extension of a water line. And generally that is about it, so reconstruction of the site. What you see here just highlighted, on either one, whichever one you care to look at, blue being the actual wetland itself, dashed line is the 100-foot buffer, and the orange would be the new pavement configuration. I know just last time I met with you folks,
Right.
we were having a hard time visualizing it. The pink on this is the existing pavement, so I just want to draw your eye down to here. This is almost like the service wing, and that's where we're losing a lot of the existing pavement. We have a decrease of 16,000 square feet in the buffer zone, so you can see this gets much narrower. I was a little shaky doing this here. It's not actually that thin, but it's a steady, I think, 14 feet through here. And then we pick up the bus loop. So just to go over some of the numbers, it's an 8.5 acre parcel. North Environmental flagged it for us last December when we were beginning the survey and beginning the planning for the project. This flows eventually into the wetland here, which then is, there's
Goes into
a vernal pool, which is farther into the river, into the woods,
Ox pasture. Oh, wait, no, this
Egypt
goes to the
River.
salt marsh, Egypt River.
and then eventually into the Egypt River, then combines with the Rowley, far off, a little far off. We have an increase in site of impervious of 0.3 acres or 16,000 square feet. Again, essentially, it's the bus loop, and actually a decent amount of that number, 5,000 square feet almost, is the conversion of gravel parking to impervious. So it's areas that are already seeing traffic that are just getting paved. Buffer zone alterations, we just included the whole area from the buffer zone on the site that was being altered, but it's a little under an acre, it's 25,000 square feet, but with a 3,700 square foot decrease in impervious area. And I don't expect you to be able to see in detail all the work that we're doing here, but just to show that order, and I can put it on the board if you care to see it, but the order of magnitude that we're doing for the site work, really relating to bringing the site stormwater up to compliance standards. Generally, we're picking up in new catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, sending the flows from those through the water quality structures to get our 80%, and then infiltrating them. Overflows from the infiltration then will discharge. There's 3 existing outlets just upstream from the wetlands that we are going to reuse. We're going to, on all 3 of them, redo aprons, riprap at the end of them, redo the riprap at them. If they had them before, they've filled in by now, and just to address velocities and pick up any sediments that might make its way through the treatment train. One of them is being replaced in its entirety because it's kind of missing. The other ones are just going to be, the head walls are there, and they're substantial. Again, just re-dig out where the outlet is and put in new aprons for them. We have, on the site, new structure, just to orientate you, existing basketball court, that stays as is. The driveway moves a little bit closer. And I think it's a little bit clearer on where I highlighted it, just to kind of see the flow. So parking, parking, parking. Bus loop, kind of like a parent loop, so they don't have to go up and through, just to bring a little bit more order. This pavement back here is walkway emergency access. And that's why we have a little hammerhead up back here, just the fire department doesn't have to use it, so they don't have to try to back out the entire way.
That was requested by the fire department.
Yeah.
A good idea. New playground. Most of the structures for the septic system are being reused. We're going to, after inspecting them and ensuring that they're still in good shape and in sufficient quality, the septic tanks will be reused. We're going to add 2 new pump chambers, and then reconstruct the disposal field under a reconstructed baseball field in the same location where the baseball field is now.
And then we'll abandon the 2 that are
Right now, the school's on two separate ones, so we're gonna combine them into one field. And the only other, since we are here, part of your bylaw does address erosion control during construction. It's gonna be a phased project, so we're gonna do it over 2 years. The exact work that will be done in which particular phase hasn't been all.
I could go through that. but-
Oh, I'd be interested to hear that. In any event, the site will be surrounded by not only work fence, what we're doing, but also erosion control. When we're doing most of the site work, there'll be stabilized construction entrances. Most of the site work, I imagine, will not be done when the children are there. It'll be done
Site
over
work will
the
be
very,
focused on the 2 summers,
on the
this
2 summers.
summer of 2018 and summer of 2019.
So that gives us a good opportunity to secure the site for erosion, not have students, staff there, and let them do the work.
Are you even gonna do the pavement in rolling order too, or are you gonna do that last, or what?
That is still being decided. The general contractor, construction manager is on board, but we haven't bid out any of the subcontractors. That doesn't happen until February. So the current thinking, we have to get you saw the utility drawings, we have to get a major duct bank in and actually start that during April vacation with Raleigh Municipal Power. Feeding that, we need to get that in place, but that kind of power, utility, tel data connections with Comcast and Verizon, that's the real focus of the site work first summer, because they have to do all the work inside related to that, building a new electric room, new boiler room, in time for the fall.
Right.
So the current thought is most of the site work, the drainage structures, ball fields, leaching field would be summer of 2019.
Would it be safe to say anything that we do in the first summer of 2018, we would be left with like a stabilized site when we come back in the winter?
Yes.
So either landscaped areas would be seeded, or we'd at least put down pavement patch on areas that, it's gonna be a school for a year, and we kind of leave it like that. A couple things you would trip over if you're actually out there in a couple of years that I want to point out, as John mentioned, would be the transformer.
Yeah, that's the under.
The transformer, which is right here, and the emergency generator, which is right here. We're gonna put like low earthen berms on the 3 sides of those, so if anything, both are double walled, but and they'll be protected by bollards, but just in case anything ever was to happen, we would not have direct flows into the wetlands. What that lets you do is then, dig up the dirt that has seen the oil, get it out of there.
And I believe Raleigh Power said their transformer fluid is actually a bio-based.
Yeah, they're all the transformer fluids are vegetable oil now, and they don't have the fun stuff they used to have, but the
PCB.
Yep. And the diesel generator with a belly tank, but again, both would be protected with bollards. I can go over particular numbers or questions.
Just the generator, I mean, obviously is it diesel or?
Yes.
Yes.
It's diesel, okay, right.
And this time I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Baselak.
Well, so actually, so we had to quote-unquote redo, this is sort of the take 2 on this particular application, and we understand the town has procured the services of the technical reviewing agent for the planning board, H.L. Graham, who communicated to us today that they have not initiated the review.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of waiting for that. We still have the notice of intent application, and maybe we should just wait until we get into that one to talk about DEP's comments.
Sure.
They were rather succinct and.
Right.
and easily address.
Yeah, we don't need to muddy
address
the
it.
waters, we can,
Right.
do you need us to continue this, to request a continuance?
Yes, yes.
Is verbal
because
okay?
It certainly is,
All right.
yep.
Do you want a date certain, or just when we get the comments?
Well, I believe we are going to work positively here, and I'm going to recommend the commission just continue it to their next meeting
Okay.
in 3 weeks, and we're going to hope that.
So we'll just request for that.
The reviewers said they anticipated having some comment out by the end of next week.
Oh.
So we believe that that would allow an approximate week and a half to 2 week period to respond to those, and hopefully that.
So we'll request a continuance for this portion, for this particular hearing until your next meeting.
November 14th.
I mean, I thought you folks did a great job in addressing stormwater.
Well, we'll see, as we
throughout
don't have his
the-
comments.
Well, right, I know, so anyway, I did, in my view, I didn't see a complex situation here that was necessarily going to engender, you know, a lot of substantive comments. Now, we'll see whether my positive attitude is going to bear fruit.
Yeah, you just
like-
jinxed it.
like they say.
And just to remind folks that, I mean, obviously, we're interested in doing a good job and getting through the process and not, you know, taking up too much of your time. But it's a public bid job, so what we're really interested in is understanding anything that needs to go into these bid documents before they go out, so that we're not dealing after we get bids with any sort of changes.
We like to put the order conditions in our bid documents.
Yes, and so you're responsible for it, flag it.
Right now, we're talking about the stormwater management permit,
Just
so.
all right, do you want to talk any more on the stormwater management, or do you want us to go for a continuance?
Only when we move over to the notice of intent application, since the comment came from the Department of Environmental Protection today.
Do I,
So,
motion to
well,
continue?
check and see if there's anyone in the audience.
Anybody in the
because
audience
this is
have
the
any
first
question in
hearing for
regards to-
stormwater.
I'll make a motion to continue.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right?
Aye.
Okay, so that was that one.
You can just read,
Okay, I'll
it's
just
a
read from
continued
this.
one, so that can just
Yeah.
be read off the agenda.
That brings us to our 8:30 item, which is a continued notice of intent, application DEP 63-0666 at 191 Main Street, map 25, parcel lot 40, town of Raleigh. Proposed renovation for the existing Pine Groves Elementary School and association site for utility improvements, possibly within 100 foot of a buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. Gentlemen, have the floor again.
So this is a continuation of our notice of intent from a couple weeks ago. At that time, we didn't have a number, we didn't have DEP comments, and we were still trying to figure out what we were gonna do as far as getting this peer reviewed, because we had some other permitting trails that we needed to figure out. Definitely wanted to have it peer review, just needed to understand how we were gonna get it to Mr. Granler. So the peer review is in process now. You don't have it, so this meeting, portion of the hearing will need to be continued as well, probably to your next hearing, if we have comments. We have received DEP comments regarding the plan. The DEP comments pertain to water quality inlet structure, water quality inlets that we are showing, so it's a publicly bid job, so I can't put the Storm Scepter Model 450 on the plans. But the comment was valid, they are Storm Scepter 450s. They haven't gone through their testing program to show that they meet the 80% TSS removal. So what we're proposing to do, and I started a circle, it's this structure, this structure, this structure, and that structure. So those are catch basins that act as like small storm scepters. So what I believe we would propose to do is to turn those back into regular catch basins, have them go to a water quality inlet, similar to where we're doing elsewhere on the site, and then connect them back into the system for discharge. The only little bit of trade-off that we would have is we would lose infiltration here and here, which you know, we don't particularly need to meet any of our requirements. It's just this is kind of, you know, potato, me as an engineer. I like to try to infiltrate wherever I can cheaply and not, you know, this building doesn't have a basement. So what you're seeing here was really just like a carrier pipe, actually this one came off your suggestion, like a carrier pipe perforated crushed stone so that we could lead some off. So I'll look to maybe another opportunity for that somewhere else, because I do like kind of spreading it out throughout the site. Even just making those catch basins to water quality inlets, we're going from 4 fairly expensive structures to 4 cheaper structures with 2 more expensive. So it's not really much of a trade-off in cost, I believe, if at all. It depends if I can get the infiltration back in or not. So that's the direction I was going to have. I was probably even wouldn't mind however you want to handle it as far as dealing with the peer reviewer. You know, get their opinion away. And these pavements.
We shared that comment with them, so I would believe it would be succinct to also share your.
These ones, I would say they need to be made right, because these are in high traffic areas. Actually, go this way real quick.
Right down
Right in the parking areas, right? These other 2 are in
low.
you know, areas we're not expected to see traffic, but honestly, if you plow them and kind of sand and salt the hell out of it, then maybe we do make it like the other one and just do it right, and we might end up losing a little infiltration, but again, we're over our numbers, so we'll still be good as far as stormwater guidelines.
Do you feel you have this for the next meeting also?
What's that?
Well, this is kind of dependent upon the H.L. Graham review and what type of commentary goes back. I'm sort of suggesting that preemptively, since we got that DEP comment, to
Deal with that.
share and then push to H.L. Graham Associates what it appears to be the appropriate response to that is, reacting to it, so that maybe that would just grease the wheels of their review instead of just waiting for the ping ball match to go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then towns do it different. I'm actually a reviewer for 20-something years in a different town. It's generally the thought is you don't want to see us together until we are all good with H.L. Graham. Like we don't do dueling consultants in the public hearings, right? Like it's make it right. The next time you see us, you have a letter from them saying they're okay with it, and we're not.
Right.
Sky's blue. No, it's indigo.
But as professionals, we don't mind if there is a discussion about
Yeah.
potatoes,
No.
because we realize that sometimes there are different options to get to the same end result. So,
Yeah, if we come to something like that, we'll come. But generally, if it's something we can address and not have to kind of bother you.
Do you have any
And
questions?
I was going to say, the only other comment that I've had some experience in is also always keeping in mind that a municipal facility then is the responsibility of municipal care and maintenance. So if we have a choice between the Cuisinart and getting the Black & Decker coffee maker, we're probably going to want the Black & Decker coffee maker and not necessarily the Cuisinart.
Right, and so what I was suggesting too, as far as making the catch basins and adding 2 water quality structures is you go from 4 structures that really, I mean, there's other ones, but there's like four structures you really got to pay to down to 2. And now you should be cleaning all of them and
Right.
maintaining them, but there's you know that I mean it's a municipality, so I
Yeah,
understand.
there's some that need more TLC.
Right, and we'd reduce that from 4 to 2. So I kind of felt, I was thinking about it both ways, and on the drive up, I was like, I like the forever kind of solution. And
Any questions from the audience? Anyone from the-
we need to request that this gets continued.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Continue to November 14th.
Thank you.
So this, I'll have to talk to the.
Don't get him long.
Then back to the meeting Thursday.
I'm thinking I have to go.
But I'll drop off the agreements, they're all signed, they're in the car.
You can just leave
I just was
it.
gonna do a package.
See you, Larry.
See you this week. Yep.
Judy always has
Yeah,
one.
she will always.
You bet. Did you talk to him about the?
I was just asking about the cells, I mean the lock.
You saw that
It's
email
like
about
the,
the lockers?
What it is.
It was a vendor that was just calling me.
Manager, thank you. Thank you. I was actually project supervisor, but I knew that wasn't right. It was project manager. Yeah,
Plus they ventilate the
yeah,
lockers.
hired by.
They ventilate the lockers through the lockers. He smells from uniform,
Yeah,
inspections.
yeah.
So it's just something he's gonna talk to Greg about.
We need to have that.
I just didn't understand it because,
As an addendum.
Well, I'm sure I can back.
yeah, we made some around here.
The lockers.
This will be off the.
Okay. 8:40.
The lockers. Comes out of here. CDA decision that Bill's working on.
All right, that's gonna bring us to our 8:45 item. And that is a continued stormwater management permit application, SMP 29-2017 at 477 Havel Street, map 13, lot 1, town of Rowley. Proposed construction of a new 14,000 square foot fire station and a 6,400 square foot addition to the existing police station, new subsurface sewage disposal system, grading, parking, stormwater facilities, and utilities. Go ahead.
Okay, great. William Murray with Places Associates on behalf of the Building Committee. Since we last met, we have gone through a review from Mr. Graham, and to the best of my knowledge, we've resolved all of his issues. We have one slightly outstanding item for the commission tonight. We still do have some changes to make to the plans, which of course we will commit to make, and certainly if you want to write them in order of conditions, you can, but they're pretty minor. There were no substantive changes to any of the drainage system designs, and only minor comments relative to the erosion and sedimentation control plan. So some of the changes that we're making is we're putting a silt monitor, a pipe that's got measurements in the forebays in the basin, and putting grates on the inlet and the outlet pipes because they're 18 inches in diameter, and some other, we're increasing the boldness of a line on the plan. So those are really the meaningful changes that we're making to the plans. Mr. Graham had some other items through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we got their approval last Thursday night. So this is the final local permit, local discretionary permit that we're seeking. The project's out to bid, so we would hope that we can get an order of conditions from this commission pretty soon. SMP. And SMP. Stormwater permit, right. Not used to that. Thank you.
It may have orders or conditions on it.
Well, it will have conditions, yes, but not orders.
All right, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Brent.
Um,
Do you have anything else to say at this point?
No, all substantive items have been addressed, including the submittal today of a revised inspection for post-construction monitoring and maintenance of the stormwater best management practices. And so, yes, we received a statement from H.L. Graham Associates that the project was in compliance with our stormwater management bylaw, so therefore, if the commission so desires, I would recommend consideration of issuing a stormwater management permit for the project with conditions typical for a municipal / commercial project.
Do you care to read those conditions, or are you aware of the conditions?
Don't have the.
You don't have it, okay.
No.
All right.
In a nutshell, though, so he's already mentioned the silt marker post for the sediment forebay. We have standard requirements for erosion control, standard requirements for submittal of notification of the filing of the SWEP with the EPA, as well as submittal of the prepared SWEP for review by the Conservation Office. We have a requirement, since their plan issuance for construction is going to be later on, there's a requirement for the submittal of 2 full sets of those plan sheets, stamped and signed and dated. Let's see, what else do we normally have? Rest of it's going to be pretty standard conditions in regards to pre-activity meetings, making sure that they follow what's laid out in the SWEP, requirement for post-construction monitoring and maintenance of the stormwater BMPs as an ongoing condition.
All right, you have, go ahead.
Just one final point. The reason that we're anxious to get your permit, other than for the obvious reasons we want to proceed, your permit's going to be made part of the contract documents, so that your permit is in fact, the requirements of your permit become contractual obligation for whoever the contractor is. So we're anxious, when is the final bid date?
The general bids are due November 16th.
So November 6th, we need to include those a week prior to the final bid date in order to actually make them part of the contractual document.
Okay. Is there any questions from the floor from the rest of the committee? Do I hear a motion for this to be approved based on what Brent's gonna put down for conditions?
And our discussions.
In our discussion, yeah.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
That's a well zone too.
No, it's not, no. It's in the Municipal Water Supply Protection District, which is possibly why they went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, although I'm not 100% sure about the zoning aspects of things. But no, the Zone 2, actually, the Water Department parcel that's wooded, that's between Ayers Park, Smith Lane, and between Well Station number 2, the Zone 2 boundary is actually in there.
Okay.
100 feet roughly into the woods off of Smith Lane, which is why a number of years ago there was a lot of heat and very little substantive light about someone complaining about how the gravel parking area to the ball field was in the Zone 2 when it wasn't. And of course they were a water commissioner.
That reminds me, I was out in fooling around in my dayload bed, in my back field this evening, and there was a god-awful crash of metal and work being done. It sounded like it was right on Bachelor Brook, somewhere on the border of the Girl Scout camp and the Bay State glass.
Yeah, Ipswich Bay Glass, they're the ones that handle metal, they might have had something
They've
fall
got a
over.
lot of metal, aluminum out there.
But it sounded like it was right on the brook. It may well not have been, but it was like a whole building tipped over.
Well, remember the former Graham property, which suffered all sorts of insults of tree cutting, so it was relatively denuded across a fair expanse of it that extends right over to Batchelder Brook. And so, yeah, there's not a lot to screen sound coming to your property down the brook corridor, to be honest with you.
You may wanna take a drive back there, just to, if you think of it.
Can do some sauntering in the woods, sure.
Okay. Then a couple of certificates.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So the next agenda item. So the new request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file number 63-0259-944 Havel Street, map 4, parcel/lot 15, Lawrence Casenti. I'm actually going to request the commission consider continuing this item and specifically requiring the applicant to address issues that arose when this was applied for sometime back in the 2007 to 2008 time period. Now, I have not had an opportunity to research this, and I guess I was feeling the stress of having a whole bunch of obligations and permits to write today, because I had a discussion with Debbie Cunningham, our secretary, and I said, why should I just accept another submittal from the same representatives of the applicant who act as if there was never a discussion before and an issue that caused the certificate of compliance not to be granted the first time it was asked for? And I'll admit, I'm suffering from the possibility that I might not have good records of that time period, because this was also from a project that occurred prior to my working for the town, so I don't have any first direct-hand knowledge. But I seem to remember and have a recollection that when the commission was asked about this in 2007, I think it was, that I uncovered the fact that this was for a septic field transmission line that goes from the front of the property, and Mr. Casenti has the stables there, has riding arenas and outdoor stables and stuff. And there's well, I call it a cross-country, but it really goes along a gravel dirt path. His septic line extends all the way back to the rear of his property to the end of a paddock where the field is actually located. And my recollection is, I think there was some type of issue when it was put in that caused the commission to not put in the issued order, because I don't think it was anticipated, but to have required them to do some type of remedial tree planting or something. And I don't know if it was because some extent of clearing went, beyond its boundary lines or whatever, but I was thinking today, and I was thinking, why should the onus be on me to try and research and find out this stuff when the property owner is using the same representatives that he used before, who should have records that indicate whatever the issue was, and that they should be submitting a statement to the commission that either they resolved the issue that was brought up at the past hearings, or making a case that this is what the issue was, and we propose a different consideration, or we propose that the commission, whatever, relieve us from whatever that obligation was or something. I mean, again, it's unfortunate I don't know the specifics, but I got the feeling as to why should I be the one that has to be the keeper of the information from the applicant and his...
That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Now, you two gentlemen don't recall anything on
I
this?
wouldn't, because I'm known.
I was around, and
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I
this
vaguely
is-
remember that there was some issues back there, but I don't remember any of the details.
That's before me.
I don't know how you guys feel, but if Brent, it's the first time Brent's ever come forward with this kind of a statement to me, so.
Well, like I said, I think it's a valid argument, because we expect a property owner to be represented by competent professional help.
Mhm.
And so if they came to a meeting and an issue was brought up, I would make a relatively
Reference them.
sane assumption that they would go back and convey whatever that issue was to the property owner, and that then they would address it with an appropriate time span. Instead, we're in a situation where another decade has passed, and they submit this to us like everything's fine with no recollection of what the previous concern was. And it could have been something as simple like we just experienced with the application for lot 33, where originally there was an area that had seen some unintended impact, got cleared, and it was proposed to be replanted, but now that we've waited a decade, the forest has come in and reseeded it itself, so the issue might have gone away. But, so I'm kind of saying, well, isn't it the obligation of the applicant's representatives to make that statement to the commission and not just say, oh, we did the project and everything was built up to standards of your order, and just not even address the fact that there was some kind of issue or concern that caused the original certificate of compliance request to be denied?
No, I certainly agree. At the same time, I would think that Debbie could look in old minutes and see if it was spelled out in our minutes.
There are no minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to, I mean,
Yeah.
but yes, I will admit that I have not had time to research it, because we have had a larger permitting load with applications than we've had throughout the rest of the season so far. And there isn't any onus, again, I'm not aware, it has not been communicated to me that there's any type of closing or whatever, and that this needs to be
Yeah,
resolved.
that was gonna be my question. is
No,
that
they-
why all of a sudden are they
They
knocking
just-
on your door?
No, Mr. Casenti is a responsible
guy.
property owner, and he just realized that this thing is still
Still
sitting
open.
out there and not open. And,
Is property for sale by any chance?
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
Who's the applicant's representative?
John DeCoulis.
Where in, I don't have my GPS, where is this on Havel?
So simply,
Where is this on
I'm,
Havel Street?
It's
Where-
the,
The horse farm,
Going out toward 133?
right, on
Yeah.
the left-hand side of you.
Oh, the one that has all the train, yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
Chris,
The big-
Chrysler Farms?
Yeah,
is
right,
what it's
thank
called?
you, yeah, I usually have my phone.
All right, do we need a motion?
Yeah, just to continue it and direct me to communicate with the applicant and try to find out, try to research what the issue was, to try and address it.
so moved.
second.
All in favor? All right.
Okay.
We have another certificate.
Oh, this is the,
Completion, not compliance.
And I'm sorry, so who made the motion?
I did.
On this? Oh, yeah, and who seconded it? Okay.
we're on to solar panels.
Oh, okay, that's right. I thought they looked familiar.
Solar panels.
Okay. You do have an email that I used, because I had to do the site visit today. Because they had a contractor this morning install the post with the signage on it. And in just a moment, let me bring up on the screen the photographs from the site visit. Whoops, I'm sorry, I did not mean to throw my pen across the table. Very unintentional, sorry about that. Okay, Central Street, here we go. And my site visit. Bring up the plan. Whoops, that's not the plan. All right, never mind, we're not gonna look at the plan. We'll look at the plan on the table. So this site had an issued order of conditions that was appealed by an abutting property owner.
Yep.
So DEP issued a superseding order of conditions, under the Wetlands Protection Act. But that doesn't discharge and it doesn't affect
What we,
what we issued under our bylaw. That, the bylaw order of conditions was never appealed or nullified. We also had a stormwater management permit. So they've made an official request to us for the stormwater management permit. But in the course of my looking at that, and they also acknowledged they were making the submittal for a certificate of compliance request to DEP, I said, well, we had the requirement for some minimal no cut, no disturbance signage. Not an awful lot, because, you know, Mr. Casenti had been managing the grass and stuff, so there is a no cut, no disturbance zone on here, but it's grass, it's on the forest edge. But we did require posts with signs to be put in this upper corner, because it gets really open there, and you could just, you know, do something and wander into the woods. And then we had a couple signs installed, posts and signs installed here, and then a couple more where we have the boundary of his property and it goes through the sort of hedgerow here where there's a tree line. There's a new culvert that was put in here, so we had a couple of signs put right in this area because it's kind of grass and we just wanted to make it evident that. So what you're looking at is when I went to inspect today, we spelled out in our requirements that there was supposed to be 48 inches in the ground, 48-inch exposure, thereabouts.
8-foot posts.
What we ended up with, and I don't know whether you can tell from these photographs or not, but you ended up with 5.5 feet out of the ground and somewhere between 28 and 30 inches in the ground, which I communicated in the email. Granted, it was late in the day, so I didn't think we were going to get a response. You know, I don't know whether, I'm really not sure how to tell you to handle this, other than the fact that, you know, the guy they hired didn't follow the instructions, which are very specific in the order of conditions. I don't know why. They will not tip over readily, but I'm just concerned that they won't be what we normally consider a permanent installation. I'm used to things that are not embedded that far down in the ground getting slowly inched up by the frost action.
You're worried about frost, okay.
Yeah.
Is it, how was it installed? Was it just driven, or was it actually dug out and they put
Kind of hard
and
for
they
me.
put
I didn't
stone
see
in there?
Almost looks like dug because you can see a little bit.
So it must have a layer of stone around it.
Possibly.
I
Again, I really don't know because I wasn't there. You can just see from the pictures that we don't have mounted piles of excess excavate around it.
Well, that could have been moved.
I was gonna say, yeah, when I put in my trail signage, I bring a tarp along with me and I just put the excess dirt on the tarp and then I go find some gully or some other place and just spread any excess soils around.
Just have somebody drive around with a tractor with a bucket on it, and just
So
tap everyone.
it's just the issue of that, you know, we're relatively specific and we talk about how much it goes in the ground for the specific reason for it not to be frost heaved.
You know,
So, but then as you go on in that, so there were a couple other things that I identified also being out there, and the major thing is that within the fenced-in enclosure, mostly all of the silt fence is still installed in there, as well as there's some still outside the fenced enclosure. It
and
hasn't
it's
been
all
taken
grass,
out.
it's all,
It's all grass. Oh, it's all thick like you're looking at in the
Yeah.
pictures here. I mean, it's, you know, it's great. It's,
So can we just ask them to dig their holes deeper and
Well,
remove the silt?
oh,
I
well-
just tell them they will get,
well, I was just gonna go over the different things, but if,
yeah, good.
I mean, I am looking for guidance from the commission about whether you're concerned about this installation and want them to correctly install the posts or not.
so there
But
are
I'm just identifying that there's other issues on the site also.
That's good.
The fact that erosion control is still
still
there,
there.
and I gave them the okay at least a month ago to take out all the erosion control. And in fact, I'm not sure who it was. A young lady came over because they saw my vehicle go in, so they came over to investigate it. She may have been a Freitag or whatever, just wanted to know who I was. And, when she saw me, she recognized me or whatever. And she said, yeah, we can't mow everything because they still got the erosion control. And I said, okay, well, I said, we'll be talking to them about that. We also had requested, not knowing whether they were going to do any ice preventative treatments, we also had imposed a prohibition on the use of rock salt and had requested that 2 signs be put up, figuring there's no, I don't see them anywhere.
And those signs, were they supposed to go right where you kind of go through that?
Well,
spot to go back
again,
in
they
there?
were really supposed to contact me, but I say to them in the email that it seemed logical that one would have one on the gate going into the fenced-in solar facility, and the other one would be at that hedgerow.
At the hedgerow, right.
Crossing where you go between the line of trees and where the culvert got replaced. That seems a
Logical place.
logical place to put it. There's no reason to put it out facing the street, because
Yeah.
this isn't like it's a complex or whatever. I mean, it's gonna see rather infrequent use. And I honestly don't know whether they ever would use
I would not think.
rock
they,
salt treatment. I think they would just plow and use a.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
would
how
think they
often
want
would
salt
you-
out in that,
Yeah.
because he's still farming that.
Yeah, he's still farming there, so I
Is
don't
there
think
anything
he'd
else
want
on
it.
there?
No, that's pretty much it.
Well, had it just been the post, I would have said overlook it, but that silt fence by now, because now you're gonna tear it up, and you go, well, is that a felt or is
It's
that?
embedded, it's
gonna be
embedded, so
embedded,
it's
well,
gonna
not
disturb
gonna
things a
have time to
little bit,
see
but
it
it can be
again.
packed down. Yeah.
And we have we have held back before when people didn't have the salt signs up, so I would say, come back again.
Okay, so you do want the post correctly installed, oh, all right.
Yeah.
So why don't we continue, I'm gonna, instead of asking you to vote contingent upon those things being done,
That's what my-
because I haven't heard back from them, I would rather ask you to continue this,
Mhm.
so I can find out whether they are going to be responsive, as well as now that I've had the discussion with you, I can give them the specific guidance that the commission wishes to see the signpost correctly installed.
No, you're not dealing with Mr. Freitag, you're dealing with whomever is
I'm
leasing.
dealing
this
with Beals and Thomas, who is hired by,
Right,
let's
Energy.
see. Well, yeah, it turned into this Agilitas
Yeah, Prime
Capital.
Energy got out of it. or-
Yeah, they bought the permitting from Brightergy.
Yeah, see, we don't know them, and, you know,
Oh, and the spill containment kit's still sitting out there, and they have one of those big barrels. It's just sitting out there on the edge of the field.
grab it for the town.
No, I am not gonna steal something on somebody else's property, I'm sorry.
Wow, just what everybody, what we needed for our group.
No, by law you do now.
Huh?
No, Brent and I've had this conversation for a while.
We're supposed to
By
have
law you
one?
do, no, huh?
But by law, you need what?
You should have one on the.
Folks
every
with
site.
Oh,
£10,000.
you should have them there.
Yeah,
Vehicles
every vehicle
are-
over 10,000 pounds gotta
They're
have one in
supposed
it.
to have them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, see,
the-
we were
the
actually a
registry
little
doesn't
ahead of our
enforce it.
time.
Yeah, the registry doesn't enforce it, the police don't enforce it, but if you get DOT to stop you. All right, do I hear a motion to continue?
Yes.
Yep. Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right,
Oh, I'm not supposed to vote on that.
I think on that you can.
I'm not worried about the
Well,
vote.
that's assuming, I think,
You want me to just put you down that you recused yourself?
I would
Are
recommend,
you because of the connection of the,
I will
well, we'll,
I'm gonna
Well,
vote.
then,
We'll
I
get
can,
somebody
I
else.
can second it.
Yeah.
say that just because the neighbors, being what they were, maybe check on something small
Yeah,
like
but
that.
he's moved
He moved. That's interesting.
So that just brings me to one point. I went to a zoning board meeting the other night, and before every item, they seemed to ask, does anybody on the board have a conflict of interest? So it was an active
that's a
question.
zoning thing, yeah.
That's nothing we don't have to do.
I've never,
I'm asking,
never-
I'm just asking as a point of interest.
I've never been.
So I went to the zoning board, and they basically said before there are issues, right, they would say, does anybody here have a?
How many members of the board?
They had 5, I think it was. And so I was just wondering, is that something that we have to do, that we should be actively asking before we get into it?
I've never been counseled that we needed to do
Do
that.
that, okay.
But I honestly have never asked the question.
So that's just a point of that's what I'm.
But that's why we're,
It's been
that's why we're
mid-
trained.
that's why we have the ethics
We
training
go
or
through,
whatever.
we go through the ethics training, right, but I was just
But
wondering.
I
Because
noticed
really,
that
you're
this board
supposed to
is very,
self-declare.
this board has been very forward on.
Declaring the rules, right, but I'm just wondering if you had to do it, that's the first time I ever saw that happen.
An interesting question, because on the DeCoulis matter that was in here, you're shown as an abutter to that road.
Right.
In the application, and I was thinking, I wonder if he should recuse himself.
Funny, I was looking for myself, I couldn't find it, I'm glad you found it, because I was going through all those, and it looked like number 5 and number 7, Raleigh Country Club Road weren't on the predecessor, so you found it, I
It
couldn't
didn't
find it.
say you were an abutter to, there's a separate list of abutters for the property. You're an abutter to the road that goes in front of the property, so technically I don't think it was a problem.
You're not within 100 feet of it.
Anyways, I just thought I'd ask that.
All right,
You didn't receive a notification?
No.
Okay, well,
this,
you weren't going to, I guess.
No.
He wouldn't, the association office would.
No, we actually,
Oh,
you
that's
know what,
true.
we've actually been given them. I got one for the other, on the zoning, I did get one for the,
all right, this brings us to our last and final item, which is
Request to amend.
I don't think we've ever had one of those before.
what's that?
Request to amend the-
We had one in a backwards manner when they discovered in trying to sell their property that they actually had an order with an ongoing condition that said they weren't supposed to have paved the driveway on 11 Clay Lane, and they had paved the driveway. So they came to
And what
us.
we have is
kind of after
a
the
request to amend certificate of compliance, number 63-584 at 706 Havel Street, map 5, parcel 8, lot 1, Melissa James. So could you take it from here?
Yes, I'm going to. So just
take it away.
okay, I'll get my little plan up. I'm doing some artwork today. Let's see, and site visit. So the request is to put a paved apron at the entrance to their garage. They are at the terminus, the final end of a common driveway which services 2 residences. That common driveway has a wetlands crossing with an intermittent stream channel and some BVW, and then we have one residence to the right, and this residence is at the direct terminus of the common driveway, and you'll see that from my plan. So what I'm depicting here is this is 30 feet out from the garage. I am using that clipboard as a scale type thing, but basically the pavement edge would be over where their masonry wall makes a curve. And I'll show you some other perspectives on it here. So this is looking with my back to the no cut, no disturbance zone and the woods, looking towards where the front entrance and the slope, obviously going upland, but still in the 100-foot buffer zone. This then looks with your back to the garage door. This is looking out, and the clipboard over here represents the 30-foot approximate distance out from that side of the driveway, and this is the 30-foot distance out. So they're requesting put a paved area whose edge would be right across there. Now, it's probably not the easiest thing to see, but it slopes and it goes a slight downhill grade. We had wetlands delineation on this side that came up with a fingerling and a wetlands delineation over here, and I think we may have required there to be a culvert put in that place, not because there was ever any flow, but because we didn't want the driveway to act as a dam during seasonal times when there was still snow or whatever and water couldn't drain away on those two fingerling projections of wetlands. I think, I didn't investigate that so much, but the important point is that here's the no cut, no disturbance post for the 25-foot no cut, no disturbance. And water from this driveway, once it's paved, you already can see that we've got little sort of berms, little rack lines of where the pine needles and stuff been headed in that direction. So there actually is a slight dip here that is sort of starting to act, and it might possibly turn into a gully if it gets a lot of concentrated flow. So let's see, was that the last picture? Yeah, that's the last picture. So, and I spoke to the property owner about this. So my suggestion was to consider, and they are amenable to doing this, so my suggestion was for them to consider putting in an embedded crushed stone area, sort of a armored swale, that would still be depressed, still be down, not be risen up, but be depressed, be embedded. And I proposed, I'm kind of guessing here, but I proposed like an 18-inch wide by 16-foot long. That's what I scaled that distance to be. And then something like 8 inches deep of the crushed stone, 2 to 3 inch crushed stone, so the water would naturally come off. Now the house has got gutters and downspouts, so it's not getting any extra roof runoff. This would be from that driveway apron area, but it already has a tendency to go over in that area, so I figured this would just sort of armor that swale and not allow it to be scoured out anymore, and also catch any gravel that's being transported down, because there's still going to be a fairly substantial gravelled area here, which some of that water is shedding in that direction anyway.
Yeah.
Very, very slight.
During the dry season, that also acts as a catch, a drainage basin.
Yeah.
Good
But I also think, and its purpose is not to do any infiltration. Its whole purpose is just to be sort of an armored surface that would catch mobilized gravel. And I said, then you can just shovel it out, put it in your wheelbarrow, hose it off, and just replace the washed rocks back in there. If you want it to look aesthetically pleasing after it, starts to fill up with some of the gravel.
They agreed.
So, and the reason,
So why is that an amended certificate? Because that was not on the
because this is the
original
only way we could figure to do this with, we did this before with Clay Lane. There's nothing that says that we can't do it,
Yeah.
but also there isn't anything that says we can do it, but it results in a document that's recorded. It's recorded and referenced against the original recorded certificate of compliance, and it clearly says amended certificate of compliance, and then you modify that ongoing condition, change it and add the ability to put this apron there. So then that gets recorded, so anyone in the future doesn't just see that prohibition that didn't allow pavement to be put anywhere else but at that stream crossing. So it puts it on record, it gives them something that has been reviewed by the commission, and it is then also publicly available because it's recorded at the registry and referenced to that certificate that had the unmodified.
So they already
ongoing
do
condition.
have a certificate.
Yes.
Based on the original
The
plan.
commission issued a certificate that had some ongoing conditions.
And the dimension would be added to that also.
Well, yeah, I would add a description that, says allows a paved apron 25 feet wide, 30 feet, with the armored crushed stone swale, as I mean, I can even reference it back to the sketch in our file if you want me to do that, but
I don't,
I
I
would
think that
just,
would be overkill.
yeah, yeah.
No, I think that's a good way to handle it, and,
You know,
it's a good
that's
point of view.
gonna silt up in about 10 years.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
Yeah, but it's.
which is why I said you
unless-
could just shovel it out and you can wash it.
Unless they clean it out,
Yeah.
it's gonna go bad.
But even if it silts up, the drainage will be larger.
It's still
during
gonna
the- it's still gonna
armor
catch it, believe it or
that
not.
section and not allow a gully to
20
be
years.
eroded and dug down.
It'll, well,
20
20,
years,
but pine
grass
needles will
will
kill it
grow
faster
out.
than anything, but I mean, basically
Yeah.
you made a French drain, and,
Yeah,
it'll
and
work for
that,
quite a while.
you know, I agree with it, the only thing is that that type of thing goes bad over time.
Yeah.
Unless
If you
it's-
put a
unless
berm,
it's
the first
painted.
plow truck would hit it, you know, so I mean, what else could you do?
Well, this is off to the edge.
Yeah, but
This
I
is
mean,
on the
still-
side.
Well, you
Yeah.
could not pave there.
And you have to remember, that the interest is not necessarily in it being a filter strip. The interest is in it being a hardened surface that is resistant to sheet flow
To the
starting
late
to gully,
sediment, to the late sediment.
the
that goes.
smaller gravel material that's there. It's really just meant to be sort of a hardened strip.
Do you think those-
Armored is the term.
Unless-
So in terms of
Unless
the
it's
pavement, is that
painted.
gonna, are you afraid that's gonna cause you more water than you're getting now? That would have flowed over there?
Packed gravel probably sheds 65 to 80% of the rain that falls on it. And so going to pavement just gets you 100% of the water that falls on it being shed.
Yeah,
So it's,
so you're trying to prevent,
Yeah,
you think that shedding is gonna be worse, so let's build this
it's
thing.
gonna be a little worse, so yeah, so just kind of harden the area, but keep it depressed so it's the trough where the water goes to. So you don't divert the flow, you control the surface that the flow is going across and keep it from being erodible.
Okay.
In a sense, it's sort of a water bar type of thing, almost.
the water bar would be raised up.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said there's no
More of a French
diversion
drain
here.
than a water bar.
Underground water brook.
Yeah, underground
It's
water.
like a
bar.
flush
Good cut.
curb.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Out
Right.
of something that's
What are we
relatively
gonna do
cheap
tonight?
and.
Rather than give it another name, do I hear a motion to accept,
Issue
Well, what do we
issue an amended,
with a
certificate?
modified ongoing
Per
condition
the
as
discussion,
discussed.
yeah.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye. We have something to sign.
Yes, I do. That's
Designs.
Yes.
Now, the last item is administrative, is that videoed?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Public hearing.
Before we get to that,
Excuse me, public meeting.
you distributed a copy of 2018 meeting dates.
That was last
Oh,
meeting.
that's right, yes, it did.
Do you want those approved,
Yes, if they're fine with everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Okay, so before we go to the next thing, has everybody have a chance to see the 20?
He handed those out did we get those last week?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, last week.
Yes,
Yeah.
last week, yes.
Okay, our last,
The week before.
yeah,
That's
last.
what, yeah.
Last meeting.
Because we're gonna have to hear him, wait, I haven't seen him yet.
Anybody have any questions, issues, problems
what are we talking about now?
on
On the meeting dates,
meeting.
218.
Proposed meeting schedule for 2018.
Do we have to vote on that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do I hear a motion
To accept.
to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I heard him say aye.
Thanks.
Through the hall.
You just said,
I said to clear
You
up
just
my
said-
nose.
You just said yes with that?
Yes, I did.
You okay with the
Yes.
2018 meeting schedule?
Absolutely.
all right, the next item is a personnel evaluation. Now, I filled out the personal evaluation myself, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to read it and see if you people have any change in it. It was a scheduled appraisal, and this was for Brent Bazelak, date of hire 2004, permanent. That's September, July 12, 2004, temporary. Date of the last appraisal was March 3rd, 2015. Okay. Has the report been discussed with the employee? No. If no, reason why? Did I feel I can give an honest assessment? Okay. For the supervisor is Arthur Page, and each item has, that I will read, well, as you can see, you follow along, it's got excellent, good, satisfactory, fair, unsatisfactory. Now, before we go any further, Brent and I don't always agree on things, but we never have arguments, he just will keep, you know, and we, so it's not, I go through this and I say, geez, yeah, yes, no, you ought to hear us. I say, no, you can't, you know, and the reason I got on the board in the first place is we were arguing like crazy. So I think it actually worked out very good. Accomplishments and goals. I said Brent has worked honestly and fairly with the citizens of Raleigh, the town officials, and the Conservation Commission. He constantly is working above and beyond his scheduled duties and is most always done on his own time. This would be on conservation trails, land, and has a tremendous interest in these lands and the lands used by the town or rented by the YMCA camp. I mean, I just can't say enough. I mean, I'm impressed and I'm embarrassed when the highway department calls up and says, hey, Brent's working, weed whacking the side of the road on a Friday. I says, yeah, that's his own time. And they went, oh. Job knowledge, I gave him a 5, excellent. I have learned an awful lot since being in this, on this committee, and that's one of the things I was looking forward to, and I've learned an awful lot. I don't see how it could be any lower. Job performance, I have to give him a 5. I mean, he'll call on a Saturday or a Sunday, or if it's gonna rain. I mean, it's just Brent goes, you know, he doesn't go home. Job productivity speaks for itself. I think the amount of work done in here, all the other towns that I've ever done work for, I am always in the conservation department, and if you could put in an application, and it might be several months before you get a hearing, a meeting, or anything. And Brent will run around like crazy on a Thursday afternoon because there's a deadline to get it in, and call me up to come down and sign something, and that's never, you know, dependability. Yeah, I don't know what you can say about that, it's just perfect. Cooperation and interpersonal behavior, as far as I have seen, I think same, it's been excellent. Initiative, if you had excellent in all the other things, you have an excellent initiative. Work environment and safety,
I can make a comment there
yeah.
if you'd like, if you're looking
Oh,
for any
would you
more.
cut your hand this last weekend?
Yeah, no, I think he goes way out of his way when we do have those
Volunteer days, yeah.
volunteer days. He makes it very clear, you know, where the potential risk areas are.
Oh, yeah.
I think it goes beyond
Yeah.
making sure that the people that are volunteering, knowing what they're getting into, and make sure they're not gonna get into trouble.
All right,
So
well,
I don't know, I just
a
telling you
good, a
this.
good example of that today is Brent was telling me he has some more stuff there, junk, he has to pick up there, and you guys work very good, you and your son, I believe, the
Yeah,
other day.
yeah, we got the other
And I
day.
said, well, if you want, Brent, I work with the police department, I can get some kids that are being punished, because I used to get them down the cemetery, we used to get them at the highway, and Brent said he wouldn't want them, because it's sharp glass, objects and stuff like that. So, I mean, that, exactly what you just said. Communication, he's always calling Kurt or I, and, you know, downtown hall constant, I mean, it's, I don't know. And that's why I said I feel guilty. I don't agree with him on everything, and he doesn't agree with me on everything, but I'm not, this is not just a yes thing. And,
Well, if I could just add something here, he's so knowledgeable and expert in his field, and his experience, that he understands with whom he needs to communicate, and I'm particularly impressed, having a bit of a legal background, with the extent to when he recognizes that we might need to get town council involved, and that's a special intuitive feel for the job that I think that is probably unusual.
yeah, and the supervision, personal management, so I give him a perfect score on this, and which, you know, I, being an employee myself, don't think everybody should get perfect score, but on this case, it's a little strange. And that's why I said that, you know, we don't always see eye to eye, and in the past, it was even worse, but I mean, I think we got a good deal here. So, I would like to give this to town if, unless anybody has anything else to add, I mean.
I wholeheartedly second all those ratings.
Yeah, I think you did a great job
Yeah.
capturing it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somewhere, I don't know, we can also try and capture, I think Brent does a really good job with you know, the customers.
Yeah.
To come up with common in other words, not that, hey, you know, like, this is the way it's gotta be done, no, you know what, you know, here's the situation, by the way, you know, if we work together, we come to better, I find is there seems to be, we come to better solutions by collaborative thinking and collaborative action, I guess is the right word.
Well, Brent has educated me on the people.
Collaborative action.
No, he has said, oh, really? Okay, we'll see, and then sure enough, we don't get called back and we don't get answers.
Exactly.
And we end up sending it out for the next meeting on with a threat. Okay, so everybody agrees that this would be,
Yes.
Absolutely.
oh, good, I'd like that to go to Debbie. And Brent,
Do we need to vote on it, or doesn't say so in the...
you can if you want, I've discussed it all with you, and I feel that, I don't have any questions.
I think you've captured the intent of the process was to have a consensus discussion.
Because it's
that
asked
all
for
the
me to fill it
commissioners-
out,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
but I would never fill out anything or do anything without the rest of the committee. I don't like to second or do anything that, I'd like to stay out of it and try to like be the meeting leader, is what I believe it's supposed to be. So, with everybody's permission, I will forward this to his file. And it asks for, as the rest of it, as you can see, as you all took blank copies. You know, if any, you know, should there any other improvements or how can be strengthened or something like that. And I think it's darn good.
One area where I think the office could be improved is that if there was when the telephone is answered, there should be an automatic message that indicates that the telephone call is being recorded. I think Howard's...
They are?
Pardon?
They are being recorded?
They aren't, but I think they should be.
Oh.
Oh, you think they should be recorded?
Yes, because we get people calling up on rare occasions and being extremely unpleasant with regard to the responsibilities of the office, and sometimes with regard to the person involved, and through no fault of the person. I mean, Brent, how long have you been on the job now?
13 years.
13 years, and I've never seen a situation where Brent was in a position where he instigated something that resulted in a complaint that was as a result of something he did. We've had people come in and complain about performance, but if they're going to call up and swear at him, or complain in a way that they should be on notice that they're being recorded.
Right.
How do you do that?
Well, you can't.
Well, and
Please
and
do
the
it.
problem is, the last call was on my cell phone,
Yeah.
where
I think,
I'm-
Brent gets a lot of those, and, as well as I have got several of those, and, but that's just part of the job.
Comes with the territory.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, and
but usually when you get one-on-one with them and tell them, this is the rules,
Yeah,
you know, and then
Well,
it's,
the technology exists to do it. I mean, the police do it, you call up a lot of other businesses
I
and
think
things.
the problem is that
So-
Massachusetts actually is a state where there has to be consent of both parties to the recording.
Not if you're,
But-
not if you're, if you indicate, they can hang up the phone, that's their consent option out, right there. If they don't wanna do it, or they can, there are other ways around that, but
well,
I think it may cause some people to have second thoughts and to approach things a little bit.
those people that I've noticed that this has happened don't have second thoughts. No, seriously. I mean, I've had several people
It's
drive
ready-
right up,
ready,
drive right
shooting.
up to my house, and I've asked them to leave, and they won't, and what they're saying is they believe, and is 100% right, but it's not the right story. No. But, let's not get into that. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yes, Mr. So I'm walking the golf course.